Mason and Ethan was eager to go into town. They had asked me many times to come with them as they poked around, somewhere in the back of my mind. I thought this was a grand conspiracy to pry me from my warm home. The boys were already out the door, as me and Lily followed. On the way out I grabbed my walking stick, something grandfather had carved out of an old piece of maple. As me and Lily walked toward the other conspirators, I asked her what brings them to Red River. Lily responded, there were a number of factors, but her dad was part of a military hydro project connected with the dam. He didn't want to leave her mother behind, because as she said he didn't trust her, she had wandering eyes. That morning was warmer than most, or maybe it was me. I hadn't been around a girl around my age in some time, epically one that wanted to talk to me anyway. As we passed the old church I didn't say a word, I wasn't sure if I should. Our little group made it past the little streets, which snaked all over Red River. This place was a maze of madness and adventure in a young boy's mind. Ethan was the first to speak, so over there in that white house, littered with tin cans, lives Linda the crazy cat lady. Mason jumped into the conversation, they say she is more than crazy, the house she rents beside hers, people around town warn to never rent from her, because she does something to the people, she somehow turns them into cats. Bullshit, Lily said laughing, has anyone ever seen people leave? That much is true, I said, we have never seen anyone leave, only people move in. You want to meet her? Not really, so any other interesting people around town? She asked. Last year we had a problem, from someone calling themselves Mr. Drips as the story goes, which was told to me by John Godson, whom you will have the pleasure to meet today. There once was a woman who lived all alone, except for the company of her beloved canine friend. Every night the dog would curl up in his basket beside her bed where he slept, and every night the dog would lick her hand to say good night. One night, she woke up in the middle of the night to hear a drip, drip, drip. The sound coming from somewhere in the house. She got out of bed and went into the kitchen where she tightened the tap. Then she went back to bed, the dog licked her hand good night and she went back to sleep. Another hour later she woke up again and once again she heard the consistent drip, drip, drip sound. She got out of bed and this time went into the bathroom where she tightened the tap. After feeling that this time she had done the trick she went back to bed, received a lick on the hand and went to sleep. The next time she woke up, morning had dawned. She got out of bed and made her way to the bathroom. Although when she entered the bathroom, she was greeted by a shocking sight. Her dog was hanging from the shower curtain, and its blood was still going drip, drip, drip. On the floor beside a pool of blood, someone had written the dog was bad, bad to Mr. Drips, don't be bad to Mr. Drips s.j. Sometime around December there was another case, our first murder in some time here at Red River. There were two girls named Emma and Olivia having a sleepover. It was being held at Emma's house because her parents were out of town. Every time Emma's parents went out of town, they would have a sleepover because Emma was afraid to stay by herself. When Olivia rang the doorbell, Emma answered wearing a beautiful silk nightgown. It was blood red and had a furry collar. Olivia envied Emma for having that nightgown. They began to watch some scary movies. All of the sudden, Olivia heard a soft thump, 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 thump. She was frightened and looked at Emma, who didn't seem to notice. As the night progressed, Olivia heard the thumping noise intermittently and it seemed to be growing nearer. When the noise sounded from right behind them, the electricity and lights went out. Olivia and Emma ran screaming, up to the second floor, into Emma's room. It was somewhere near midnight and the two girls were scared to death. Suddenly, Emma got up and ran out of the room, slamming the door behind her. Olivia sat there for what seemed like an eternity. After a long silence, she heard the thumping noise again. It seemed to be coming up the stairs, getting louder and louder. Thump, 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 and thump. Then, it stopped. Olivia thought she heard someone standing on the other side of the door and bravely got up and opened it. Olivia couldn't see a thing, so she reached out her arm and felt Emma's soft silk nightgown. Then as she reached up to feel her favorite part of the nightgown, the furry collar. When she reached higher, there was nothing but a bloody stump. When the lights came on, she discovered that her poor friend had been decapitated. The neighbors heard her screaming at the top of her lungs and called the police. When the police arrived, they found Emma's dead body, and Olivia, with snow-white hair, completely insane and rocking back and forth pointing at the wall. Smeared on the wall were the words, "Abate Mr. Drips S.J." "Who is S.J.?" Lily asked. "We're not sure, but, well, I have been getting notes from him. He calls himself Simon Jack." "Well, you're a good storyteller, to say the least." Lily smirked. As each of us walked toward town, for some reason Mason thought it would be funny to say, "Drip, drip" on every other step. Ethan jumped in by saying thump, thump on each step he would miss. Lily really didn't say much until we got to town. Just in that short time she discovered this place was full of murders and nuts. I didn't blame her, really this place had a way about it, and it got you thinking. "Let's go see Harry," Mason said. Harry was the store, the only store in town. He and his wife carried most things and could order whatever you needed. Red River was growing, but at this time in its history it hadn't outgrown little family stores. As a boy I loved the feel of walking into a store, where they knew your name. It kind of felt like you were at home. Most had a line of credit with Harry. Most owed their soul to Harry. His wife Edith was the local hairdresser. She knew the town's secrets, and would tell Harry every night. The good thing about Harry, if you were on his good side, he didn't mind sharing the gossip. I don't remember when, but at some point Lily started calling our little group the Rats. We were able to get into places without being spotted or noticed unless we wanted to. Maybe it was that day, at the store or another, but we all were lined up beside a back shelf of women's shoes, eavesdropping on Mrs. Belfry and Harry. "Harry, I need to find something handsome for my old man." "Well, Mrs. Belfry, we just got in a new type of thermal long johns." "Harry," I said, handsome as in attractive, not something to show our age right before bed. "But, Mrs. Belfry, they fit like a glove," Harry said with such a serious look on his face. No one nowhere has ever thought thermals were sexy or handsome. Could you imagine meeting a stranger, running back to some backwoods $2 hotel, for a little in and out? Locked in a embrace they turn the key, she undress and then he starts. To her surprise he has on solid white thermals, fresh with the morning's coffee stains. In the back of that poor child's mind, I can assure you she is thinking, "God, I am about to have sex my father." "Well, Ms. Belfry, we do have some new women's undergarments over there on the shelf." As she walked toward the shelf, Lily tapped me on the arm. "Is he saying what I think he is saying?" I am not much of a lip reader, but it looked like old Harry was saying, "Not now, Mr. Drips, not now." Grandmother had slid a few dollars into my pocket as I was walking out of the house. I told the gang to grab a few drinks and let's get out of there. I walked up and paid Harry. Something was off about him. On better days, he would ask me about grandmother or what I have been up to, but today he was numb toward us. The people in Red River, it was as if their minds would change in a split second. They would go off to another place and leave you hanging. As Harry slid the change across the counter, he also slid a business card. On one side was a triangle inside of a cube, under the cube were the numbers 211. On the back, the letters SJ were embossed in red. somewhere in the back of my mind. I thought this was a grand conspiracy to pry me from my warm home. The boys were already out the door, as me and Lily followed. On the way out I grabbed my walking stick, something grandfather had carved out of an old piece of maple. As me and Lily walked toward the other conspirators, I asked her what brings them to Red River. Lily responded, there were a number of factors, but her dad was part of a military hydro project connected with the dam. He didn't want to leave her mother behind, because as she said he didn't trust her, she had wandering eyes. That morning was warmer than most, or maybe it was me. Mason and Ethan was eager to go into town. They had asked me many times to come with them as they poked around,